is that we weren't in control of it. I think that not having control causes us to feel more helpless sometimes, or less able to act and not knowing. But it's also, I think a lot of times we're not taught to deal with our negative emotions. And so when that negativity kept coming and coming, those are all frequencies too. Those are all ways in which it'll draw up whatever wasn't healed or addressed within ourselves. It'll draw it up and bring it up to the table, like, okay, it's matching this. And now we have all this fear all clumped together. And what do we do with it? And it overwhelms the body's systems.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.
Hello, West Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. The spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofits, individuals that can help us thrive in our lives. We have a very special guest for you today. I have been so interested to learning more about what she does. Her company is Inner Resources, and she is a psychologist, and she is certified in energy medicine. Now that is interesting in itself, which is focusing on emotional freedom techniques, energy psychology, trauma release techniques, along with a sports we'll move it towards sports mindset that can help people thrive. And basically what she focuses on, the mind, the body, mind, emotions, and the spirit. I want to welcome to the show Jana Messing.
Hi, great to be here.
Thank you for being here. I've heard so much about you, and I'm so excited to learn more about who you are and what you do. So you're going to start off on explaining that, and then we're going to go into some great questions I'm sure other people will be interested in.
Okay. So I was traditionally trained in psychology as a psychologist. That moved me out into, I studied Native American healing in New Mexico.
What made you go into that?
Well, as a psychologist and working with just the talking of things, I felt more in the body, and I had more intuition of how people were experiencing it in their body, and we weren't really getting to that. And I was so caught up and not grounded in that story and in the mental that I just had a feeling that getting more grounded in earth, and it's always been, Native Americans have always been of interest in my life. And so friends of mine wanted to go out west, and I said, I'm going to go, and that's how I found a traditional healer and started just working.
Did it change your life?
Absolutely. It was like being caught up in a race, and all of a sudden you get to not race anymore.
Right. Transformation, I've had a lot of guests on my show, and some of them that that talk about the transformation, the mindset,
right.
To help people, because you begin to discover, as you probably did when you were talking to people, that they're holding themselves back. They may come with all kinds of problems, and they're like, okay, let's start with you.
Yeah.
And it is true that once you start changing how you think and deal with, I don't know if you're a fan of Jordan Peterson, he just said, start by just making your own bed.
Right.
And then organizing your own room.
So that's where I was. I got to get back to myself. And so everything was external, and I had to get back inside. And that was a really good way to center again and just get really grounded. And from that place to just make a better connection spiritually with who I was and where I was in the universe, and how to bring that forward and help people more.
So tell me a little bit, did something trigger, because you talk about trauma, and that's what a lot of people deal with. We don't know people's trauma. Mm-hmm. And I like to say this, we're every age we've ever been. And when you deal with people, so explain a little bit. Every age. What is it that brought you to, look, there's something I need?
Well, I grew up in a family that was with trauma. I mean, we had we were children of divorce.
Okay.
We experience trauma through that and through trying to understand that and just be more part of the community that isn't necessarily that.
Well, did you have a large family?
Yeah, we had a large family.
Okay,
There
I
were
did too.
7 of us. And
6.
Oh, nice, nice. And we were, raised Catholic and went through that. And I think that was very supportive for us to have that kind of solid foundation. My mom made sure that that came through. But through the trauma and through the seeing things differently, I think, through those experiences and feeling things differently, and not knowing how to be with certain feelings or where that would be a safe place to express those feelings.
Right.
And then working through that. But I was fortunate because I went through and I played sports, and a lot of that was able to come out through sports. And
Right.
and you learn how to do those things. But I'd always had that sense that I would grow up helping people. Always. Always, always,
Isn't
always.
that amazing?
Yeah, it
That
was
these people
very
do that.
strange.
So you went where? You got your psychologist.
So I
where'd
went
you
to
go?
Catholic Central for high school, and then I went on to Western. Well, I got my bachelor's at Hope College
Okay.
in
That's
psychology.
a whole different
Oh yeah, it was.
religion.
It was a whole different experience there. And I wasn't so much part of the community outside of Hope, but within the discipline was really a good thing for me, and just the level of academia was really good there. I
yeah.
started off at Aquinas, actually. I got run over on a motorcycle. I
Oh
had
my
a motorcycle.
goodness, okay.
And and once I recovered, I was like, they had a better psychology program at the time
At Hope?
at Hope,
Yeah.
stronger, and so I went there, and then I worked in the field, Ottawa County day treatment, and then I went on to Western Michigan for a master's. So I was a limited licensed psychologist,
Right.
and I got my master's, and I worked in CMH, community mental health, and I worked all aspects of that. I became a clinical case manager, but I also supervised a case management team.
Okay.
So that would go out in the community and help people in their homes to stay in their homes and thrive in their homes.
Right.
All different levels. I was a crisis intervention person. I was a liaison for the state hospital at a time, the federal prison at a time.
Oh boy, you
So-
had a lot of experience. Oh, I would family, prisons, and,
Right.
and you saw what that you were dealing with. You're like, did you see? Because you went a whole different avenue of psychology, right?
I did.
And finding out maybe we didn't have what we needed to have to help them. How'd that work?
So, we focused mostly on the pathology of it. And I think all of even, observer effect in quantum realm or what they're coming out with research now, whatever you're focusing the energy on, it's growing. You're sending more energy to it. And so working to do more of the potentiality and what are the positive aspects and how do we expand in those areas for people, and what are their strengths and what do they like and what engages them.
Right.
Wholly engages them.
Right. Well, doing,
Yeah.
like I said, the interview, and I like the interview process because I see what lights people up. What is
Right.
it? And I love the show. It's like, okay, what
Right.
can we promote?
I
And what can
love
we,
that.
out into the world? It's not so much marketing. It's like, let's
Right.
share your message.
Right.
And that's why I wanted you here because I have had a lot of trans people that work on mindset. That's the buzzword. I don't know. They got to come
Right.
up with a new one
Right.
now because it's been overused. But I
Right,
always
right,
say,
right.
but there's so many people, such as myself, that got stuck.
Yeah.
And during
Yeah.
20, I got real stuck.
Right.
Lost
COVID.
everything. Right.
Right.
And I was those people that I did not feel safe, and it wasn't from the virus. I didn't feel safe of everything I saw on TV.
Right.
The news.
Right. The fear factor.
I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my friends will tell you, they're like, I kind of went like, I guess I just trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trauma.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I didn't know what the future, I just didn't want the future that was being
Right.
presented to
Right.
me on TV. It's like, I don't want that. I
Right.
don't want to go down that life. And I understood it. It stood a little bit of it, but I kept glued to the news because I thought if I
Right.
didn't know, I would be the man out. Like, why
Right.
didn't you see this?
Right.
It's kind of like the stock market. You want to
Right.
know
Fear
if
of
it's gonna
missing
crash. So what is that? Let's get
So-
with today. What is that fear? Let's just talk about that. the fear that is just
Yeah.
consuming us.
So I think one of that we were so focused on it is that we weren't in control of it. I think that not having control causes us to feel more helpless sometimes, or less able to act and not knowing. But it's also, I think a lot of times we're not taught to deal with our negative emotions. And so when that negativity kept coming and coming, those are all frequencies too. Those are all ways in which it'll draw up whatever wasn't healed or addressed within ourselves. It'll draw it up and bring it up to the table, like, okay, it's matching this. And now we have all this fear all clumped together. And what do we do with it? And it overwhelms the body's systems. So I think working in the body is huge, especially when you tell the same story over and the same story is coming at you. It just keeps us in that level of energy. But when you work with that clearing and healing, getting the body balanced in your energies, so there is a certain way to balance the body's energies to keep the things flowing in the way it should, so all the systems are fed. And if it's not doing that, we start to have dysfunction within the body. And trauma's like that even. It contracts us, so we can't flow energy in the same way. We're all energy beings. Yes, it's all water and blood and all these other things, but it's about energy too.
Yeah. Why do you think, when I look back on it now, I'm a lot stronger, I'm through it somewhat, right?
Uh-huh.
And 9/11, when that happened, brought me to my neighbors. Right?
Right.
I mean, I hugged people at church
Right.
that I couldn't stand.
Community, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, you couldn't hug anybody. You couldn't
Right.
hold. I was
Right.
alone. Even going to the store was in and out. And I
Right.
still feel that is still the way it is. I mean, you get into the store and you get out. Somehow
Right.
we've lost. What did
Right.
you see being
I think
the
that's
specialist?
really true. I think it's really true. Well, I work across the U.S. and I've worked in Europe too. And so COVID's been different in a lot of different places.
Right.
Here in Western Michigan, I see that as being true. I just was driving the other day and thinking about how we're still really self-centered because of it, I think. And I think I see a lot of organizations coming out and trying to build more community.
Mm-hmm.
And I even in churches seeing them try to bring their neighbors in, or not necessarily just to get them into that church, but I think going out into the community more and bringing people together. But I see a lot of different people coming out in the community events that are happening.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I've seen a lot of that
did.
too.
And I thrive around people. There's other people
Yeah.
that thrived. They loved because they were already a homebody. This was perfect for them.
Right.
They loved
right.
it.
The introversion and
Yes. And I felt like when they used to talk, and it's like, oh, I'm just loving it. I'm doing this. And I was crashing. It's like
Right.
I
Right.
do
You
better
need people.
with people.
Right.
What do
right.
you see? Okay, so you're helping everybody around the world here, and through Zoom, right?
Well, some through Zoom. I travel a lot.
You
yes.
travel a lot.
Yeah.
So what do you see? Are you seeing the effects of this?
Oh yeah, anxiety and depression have been sky high with people, and getting them to feel safe in their body again, and to feel a sense of safety and a sense of reframing what happened, and also looking at what strengths they've gained in it.
Yeah. And
It's
how bad,
it's really
and maybe
huge.
even how badly they acted, how it went off the rails. Like me,
Well-
it's like I write off 20 and 21. It's like I
think
don't want
it's
to talk about it.
to point you into the direction of where do I still need to like get in there and maybe help myself feel stronger in that area, or feel like I can handle it better.
Well, the reason I wanted you on the show, because you do talk about, I really want to know more about this, this somatic.
Somatic subtle energy.
Yes, I've done some research on it since I knew that you were going to be on the show, and I've heard some talks on it and people, and I was pretty blown away. Can you share a little bit about? Let's talk about what you are
How I
offering
do?
people. Yes.
People come in with certain challenges or obstacles that they feel are keeping them from doing more or being more, or this sense of depression or anxiety, or some other physical condition. The physical conditions are really easy to get at with the somatic subtle energy. I use muscle testing or energy testing, and there are systems within the body. I use the Chinese medicine system, which is the meridian pathways. There's energy pathways that run through our body there's a energy that comes off of our body that, and all of these things are measured in like MRIs or MRIs or, there's certain things that measure these things. There's also what they call Kirlian photography that can show that energy coming off the body. But those energy pathways, they help direct the way the blood flows, the way the organs are fed. When we go to stress, those can be reversed or they flip or we contract. We're not flowing energy in the same way. And over time, it creates dysfunction within a system.
Your body doesn't work right. And I've heard that.
Contracted,
a lot of your illnesses, and I'm not down to you can go to your doctor.
No, not at all.
But what I'm saying is that a lot of it is coming from something else that's causing, like arthritis could be that,
it's autoimmune.
Unforgiveness.
Right.
I've heard
that. Right. Yes.
And you're maybe angry at your parents or your dad, something, or your sister
Right.
for a long period of time, and all of a sudden arthritis shows up. And I've heard that through religious people I've talked to. It's like, if you have arthritis, you should be looking at what's your heart and forgiving your neighbor.
And even before that, your stress level. It's stress base is, there's actual physiological responses that, but where it shows up is a lot of times related to certain emotional themes. But the stress of it kicks in our fight, flight, or freeze response. Mm-hmm. And where that first place that energy pathway takes energy from is our immune response, spleen. And our spleen is like doing metabolism and producing the blood cells that are necessary to fight whatever it is. But when that gets depleted, like time and time again, we're getting this fear response. We're in this constant state of stress.
I gotta know, I have to know, I gotta be ready.
Right. And it's pulling from our resource of our reserve of how we act towards, or how it gets treated in the body. And when that gets depleted, it goes to different places in the body, and it's an autoimmune response then, because it's attacking the body because our protection isn't there to help us defend against it anymore. We've depleted that source, and so it's doing something else, and that's autoimmune stuff. But the way we go at it is I energy test. I look at the systems that are affected.
You ask me questions? How is it if I showed up at your office?
I would say first, what's going on with you? How have you been?
What brings you in?
Is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it like a spiritual sense even? Because that can go to how is it affecting your thinking? How is it affecting your emotions? But then I test the body to see if all the things that are supposed to be happening, the general direction of flow of energy, the way the energy should cross, the way you're grounded, the way certain meridians are connecting so you can hold a buffer, which is what people call your aura, which is a filter around you. And so there's certain things that I check to make sure they're all going in the right direction. And if they're not, then there's ways that we correct those.
Well, and we all know we can, all of us are, emotional. We have a sense of things where we sense people, I can trust you, or that's a big one, trust.
Right.
Or I'm just like, there's something about that person I don't like, but I may not know what it is.
Right. Safe or unsafe.
Maybe they're just better at something than I am. I don't know. I always tell people, I'm like, I don't know why. I just feel weird when I'm around them. I feel very small. Right. And I don't know why that is.
Right.
And is that part of it?
Well, you can sense things in people. And, sometimes if someone already has an illness in them, you can sense something different in a person. I have a hyper sense of that. I can entrain to someone's energy and feel their energy as if I'm that person. That's why I can do Zoom calls. And I can energy test it on my end to see what's going on with them. This doesn't make sense to people. But if you go
Why
more...
doesn't it make sense to people?
Because a lot of the science in certain places aren't there yet. There are places where it's coming up and they're doing research on the quantum field and how there's no time and distance in it. There's this thing could be happening here, and if it's aligned with that frequency over here, the same thing could be happening in different places of the world. Yeah. And it's like that with us.
It's a mystery.
But we really don't know. Like, we don't accept that could be within ourselves, or even that the body could still heal itself. And I'm not saying this is against medical. It's totally in complementary with medical treatment too, but it can help strengthen the systems and strengthen the direction. And once we do that, it creates positive chemistry. So a lot of those things get corrected just in the body going in the direction it should and flowing the way it should.
Well, and I would say that, I do a lot of stuff too to try to learn what is not holding me back, but I get a lot of people that, that stumbling blocks.
Yeah.
Why do I continuing to do the same thing, or why does it do this? Or do you understand?
Yeah,
and people
habitual
don't
patterns.
understand.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and to figure out the energy thing. And I think we're kind of leery because, we're so, we're worried that it's some quack.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That I'm going to be taking it, I'm going to spend this money and I'm going to end up the same at the end.
Well, and I give money back if they don't see improvement. I mean, because I know this will help people. But the other part is, you can look at it from an energy perspective, or you can look at it like, how am I feeling better? Is my mood better? You will feel a difference because it's not just energy. It changes like how relaxed you are. This fight, flight, or freeze response. If everything's going in the right direction, that part of you relaxes because it feels safe.
Right.
And so then things flow better. And as that consistently happens, you feel better. Your chemistry changes to positive thoughts. Every thought is a chemical reaction in our body. I mean, that to me is like, it's not just
something gets fired up.
Yeah,
and
it's all neurological, chemical, but energy is part of that. The way we flow energy, every living thing has this toroidal flow around it. If you look on, like our Earth has a toroidal flow, all living beings have this toroidal flow where the energy is coming in and going out, and that's our grounding and it's how we feed our system.
Okay, Jana, let's talk about the whole person. You state here that the body, the mind, the emotions, and the spirit. Can you go in a little bit more detail on that?
Yes, the body doesn't lie. So a lot of things show up in the body if there's an emotional or thought pattern that's not helpful to a person or is against their natural way. The body will show it somehow. So it could be subtly in the way those energy patterns are going that I mentioned, or it could be more overt, like they have some kind of condition. They have an autoimmune response or autoimmune condition that's affecting them. I work a lot from that perspective, from the physical body. I also work from the emotional, the thought patterns and the emotional
I feel we're all
responses.
Emotional. We're just an emotional mess, right?
We're all of it, right? Especially after COVID. Especially after COVID,
okay.
We're dealing with a lot of stuff and
Right.
trying to make sense of it all.
Right.
But emotionally, it affects our body. I work sometimes with people like, bring this to mind, and I show how the body changes through the energy testing, how those systems are changed just in the thought of it. And we work with, how do we get the body balanced as you think of that? How do we shift your mind out of that conditioned response or that old pattern that you've held and bring it into what healthier place you want, or what you want and not what you don't want?
Now, this is a little different than just, thinking and it'll become a reality.
No, it isn't. Yeah, it's actually
what
working.
Was that show that, people talked about?
Yeah.
You just had to visualize it.
Right. No, some of it can be that. You can use some of that to support the condition you want. Like it's like keep practicing, like in a sport, you keep seeing yourself doing the perfect way you want to do something, and it builds the neurological response to that. It's the same with that too. You can visualize, here I am just peaceful and calm in this state. And the more you do that, the more the body gets brought to that. It's amazing.
So
the
Do
communication.
you think that and I always see this sometimes in my world, I think, are people addicted to emotional?
Oh, get me started on addiction.
Think about it. It's like they like the drama.
Yes,
drama,
exactly,
the
exactly.
drama.
What's familiar? And look what's familiar after COVID, the drama.
Right.
The fear, the anxiety, and it is, I think we get addicted to so many things, but we can get addicted to energy patterns or even conditioned responses that we had, or, the way we thought about something. We can get addicted to that. I mean, there's so much.
Do we have a way of knowing how to say to ourselves, okay, the ideal thing for us is a peaceful state? Even
Right,
though
right,
it's not really, you can't change what's happening, it's how you react.
Yes,
Who
yes,
are
yes,
you?
yes,
And
yes.
I always tell people, who is Pamela in this situation?
Right. But if you can bring yourself to that peace and you keep practicing that, and the body keeps strong in it. So working in the body's energies to keep a person strong, no matter what's happening out there, you can deal with it in a different way. The way that we kick in our fight, flight, or freeze response, we lose blood here first in the frontal lobe, and that causes us to be less able to make decisions because that's where we make decisions from.
Yeah.
So making sure your body stays in a state of peace can change how you react to so many different things.
I had the same thing. I told my husband when I went through COVID and went through my trauma thing, through that whole thing, I just felt this massive energy, and I could not explain.
Yep,
It was not
yep.
a headache.
No,
It was a massive, and
like
I
overstimulated
could not,
probably.
I lost
place.
weight.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
a mess. So a lot of people, went the opposite. They gained weight because
Yep.
they delved into alcohol. I couldn't even put a
Right.
cup to my lips.
Or they got depressed. Or
Right.
they got anxious. Yeah. And they just, yeah.
So I understand what you're saying about the energy. It was always there. Even when I slept, I could not get a good night's sleep.
Well, sometimes what you're feeling as always there can actually be something that's blocking the energy there, and you can feel that as some pressure or something that's
Yeah.
heavier. You
I
can
always-
feel it in your body. Sorry.
I fantasize, not fantasize, I dreamt just sitting in a park and just putting my head on a total stranger and crying. Because I just wanted it,
Aw.
the release, the
Right,
energy. And I think I
right.
didn't want to explain why I felt like I did. I
Right.
didn't know why I felt like
Right.
I did because I'm a strong person.
Right.
I just wanted to cry.
Right.
And just
some
something.
of it is teaching people how to deal with those different emotions that we're not so familiar dealing with and we never learned how to deal with.
No.
And it's also like teaching people how to come to a state of peace within themselves, that mindfulness stuff. It does work. How to, to use whatever their bridge is to their higher power, whatever their spiritual or religious belief is, to engage faith again in that.
Yeah.
And to really get to what do they really believe in and what does their body show they believe in and how do they expand in that. And I always see the energy work and the physical work as the bridge between the physical and the spiritual.
Right. Okay. So then, so what kinds of, you said you deal with trauma. What
I
kinds
do.
of conditions, problems do you work with? Trauma?
I've worked with
childhood stuff?
I've worked with all kinds. I've worked with all kinds. I mean, I go at it differently. I'm not a practicing psychologist in Michigan. I am do a life coaching because of that, because there's so much more to what I'm doing, and I don't want to get into that, that.
Right.
So the way I work it is coming at it from the body and bringing peace and safety in the body, helping people if they need other therapy with someone else to go through some things. But a lot of times their stuff comes up in it. There are people I've worked with dissociative things that we've uncovered they never knew, and the trauma from those places, and working in I've worked with triathletes. I mean, I
Right.
work from the extremes of, in community mental health, I worked a lot with, the psychotic, but a lot of those things, some of those things are being found out to be responses for trauma and what it did to the brain, and trying to get people creating better pathways in their brain so
Well,
they don't experience that.
I'm a huge golfer, and we watch the PGA, and I'm telling you, it's all mental.
Oh, it's
You got the best of the
it
best.
is. It is.
All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with West Michigan that I have not asked you? Because we could talk forever.
Right? Well, it's, everything about what I do is to help bring the best out of the person in front of me, whatever they are ready to work towards or can imagine of themselves, and to
Right.
help them to thrive. So looking at whatever is in the way of that, let's get rid of it. Let's show them how to do this for themselves. It's really about giving energy practices and tools so they can do it themselves and not depend on me forever. That's key.
Well, that's key, and that's what you want with everybody. But
Yep.
there's been so many, I guess, transforming
Right.
mindset. But it's not for everyone. It's like
No.
diets.
Yep.
Right. You go to certain. I have friends that are diehard Weight Watchers. They do that.
Yep.
they do the, all kinds of different stuff, and it didn't work for me. I had to kind of find a development myself with my lifestyle, my,
Right.
where I'm at in age.
Right. It's all
everything.
different factors and variables for each person. It's
Yeah,
all
for you.
different. Yeah.
Okay, where can they, where can they
me?
reach you?
Well, you can reach me on email at janamariemessing@icloud.com, or you can make a phone call and talk some more about this at 720-625-9407.
All right, I want to thank Jana Messing for being
Thank
here
you so
today.
much for the opportunity.
I could have talked forever for you because I guess I'm similar to you. I love to be able to find something that's going to be able to connect with West Michigan. But we'll probably have to have you back.
Well, I'll just talk to you, not on the camera even.
That's right, we can do that.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
this is Pamela Keim. We will catch you next time. This is Grand Tap Media. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.